Hello everyone, it's Fjaller, and today I'm going to be doing the 4th Lodoss War Challenge, the Grey Witch Cometh. So I know I'm kind of late to the party with this one, but in my defense, I'm really lazy. So first I'll just throw up the units I used on the screen. You can pause now if you want to take a closer look. I'll be talking about the fight itself while my run is playing in the background later, so this video doesn't end up being 5 hours long or something. Anyway, I tried to keep my team as budget as possible, as I tried my best first to stick to SR and below units, and if I included SSRs, I would include the ones that are more easily accessible to people. I tried a couple times to beat this with a completely budget party, and what I found is that it's probably impossible to do so if you do not have a tank that can take magic hits, and the only SR and below tank that can do that is Freya, and I don't have her built. And if I ended up using Freya, I actually would have needed to restructure the entire party to be more Origin of Light focused, and I don't have the majority of those units built either, so this was a problem of resources on my part. So anyway, for the team I actually used, Cherie is available to everyone, well, assuming you weren't supremely lazy and you actually got her when you started the game. I also included Ledin here, because like I said, it's very difficult to do this fight without a tank that can take magical hits. It is technically possible to bring a tank that can only tank physical hits if you position in very specific ways, but it's very restrictive, and you probably need really good enchants, even better enchants than what I have here, which I think should be considered at least mid-tier. So some other notes on this team. Matthew is a unit that I use regularly anyway, so if you don't regularly invest in them like I do, then yours probably will not perform at the same level mine does, but you'll see that that might not be so bad because I will have a couple turns left over at the end of the run. Ledin's also a unit that I've invested a decent amount into. You can see that he's 6 stars, but it's actually not super important that he's 6 star because he's mostly there to be a meat shield. The rest have relatively, I think, accomplishable builds. The Cherie is only 5 stars, and Narm is wearing 2+2 red. You might be wondering why I'm doing that, and that's mostly just because that's what I had. I didn't really have enough gear to be able to give her a full set of Breeze or Rough Sea. I geared with the intent of getting their HP high enough so that they can survive various AoE checks in this fight, which, as always, there are quite a few of them, and they hit very hard. Iris and Sophia are also going to be using Clerics or Holy Knights, and they're only level 5 for me, and I don't think they're really necessary, but the healing power is always nice. You can also put Bolt Rangers on Iris for extra survivability if you want to be really safe. But for Sophia, Shrine Maidens can save her, but there's so many AoEs flying around in this fight, sometimes it might be very difficult to keep them up for her. Anyway, let's jump into the fight now. You'll see that this particular recording gets kind of sloppy later on in the fight because I make some kind of dumb mistakes in this fight. But I hope you'll excuse me for having to re-record this run yet again just so I can get an absolutely perfect run for you. Because I'm getting a bit sick of this fight, to be honest. I had to do this fight quite a few times to even get this recording. I actually had a better playthrough of this stage earlier, but I forgot to record it, and that was really awful for me. Anyway, my initial attempt at this fight with my regular party was actually, I just got it in one go, because this fight has a lot of RNG involved, but it can be mitigated if you have a lot of overpowered characters like Tiaras and Liana. Anyway, because of all the RNG, you cannot follow this guide one-to-one. Like, you can't just copy what I'm doing, but I'll explain why as we're going. So you can see that turn 1 is just set up. Ledin, faction buffs, and Iris teleport Cherie to the left side so I can start killing whatever spawned on the left side. Ideally, it would be a ghost spawning on the left side and a skeleton at the bottom, but you can see I got the opposite here. But that's not a big deal. It can still work. It's just kind of disruptive to fight a skeleton first because they have both Seal and Black Hole and Sleep. So Black Hole is always an RNG bomb, which is really awful, and it can end an entire run if you get a heal block at the wrong time. And of course they also have Sleep, which eats your buffs more importantly than the stun. The stun actually isn't that big a deal, but getting your buffs cleared early on in the fight can be very painful. So you might be wondering why I didn't bring a Dispel or a Mass Protect or Mass Resist to prevent these debuffs, but the problem is, like, because if you do not use the big offensive healers like Tiaras or Liana to act again, you need to be very aggressive with healers like Sophia and Iris. You'll see that I end up playing very aggressively with Rewind and Iris Teleport so that I can try to maximize the damage I'm outputting with the units that I'm using. Anyway, the Ghost has Rewind and Dark Reaper, so the Ghost is far less annoying than the Skeleton. The Rewind is probably the most threatening. The Dark Reaper really isn't that scary. Most of my units can take the Dark Reaper and live. So killing the Skeletons in this fight will lower Carla's attack, whereas killing the Ghost will lower her defenses. Doing both of these things are very important because Carla's intelligence is very high, and it'll get even higher later in the fight if you do not bother killing the Skeletons. So she'll become very, very dangerous, and she'll be able to one-shot your units easily. So you need to kill a combination of both the Ghosts and the Skeletons. These debuffs on Carla from killing the Skeletons and Ghosts will stack up to 3 times, and I would recommend for a not highly invested party to kill 3 Ghosts and maybe 2 Skeletons if you can handle the attacks. I mean, ideally, obviously, you would be killing 3 of both, but obviously you'll be wasting more time the more time you spend on killing those adds. So you can see that I'm using Crystal Molders on Ledin, which is a very uncommon troop for people to be using, but you don't need to worry because these Crystal Molders are only level 5, and even at level 5 they already have better magic defense than pretty much any other troop that Ledin can wear. And they have a bonus of reflecting damage back at Carla because she's doing magic damage, so they're actually really good soldiers for this fight. Freya can also, if you bring Freya, you can bring her Princess Guards, which have magic damage reduction. Those might be decent, although the problem with them is that they are infantry class, so that might leave Freya open to being killed by the Hellhounds that spawn later. So if that happens, if you end up using Freya, I would highly recommend that you use your DPS to take out the Hellhound so that she has no trouble tanking the other adds. So you can see that each time Carla attacks that she puts a debuff on everybody she hits, so including the AoE will put a debuff on everybody she hits. And if you get 2 stacks of this debuff, you will be stunned for 1 turn. So this is why you saw on turn 2 earlier that I moved Ledin out of the way and used Cherie to tank one of the hits. So that Cherie would take a stack instead of Ledin taking 2 stacks and being stunned. So you always need to remember to keep at least 2 units within Carla's range because she has, one of her skills says that if less than 2 units are in her range, she will get a damage buff, and if that happens then the run is basically over because she becomes insanely powerful. So I mentioned this because like even though it's written right there for you to see, it's actually very easy to forget that this is a mechanic while you're busy trying to maximize your DPS and moving all your healers around. Moving all your healers and your DPS around, and all your tank is standing there. So this is something you need to be very careful about, especially if you don't have the clock. So remember that if you ever use your tank to hit Carla, or you run your DPS back to hit Carla, that she has a talent similar to Juggler, where she will heal every single enemy unit, except for herself, every time she's hit. So basically this is a mechanic to prevent you from being able to work on both adds and her at the same time, which is pretty nasty mechanic. So you can see that now she's just summoned Hellhounds and a bunch of other adds. So out of these adds you have a pretty standard Vampire Bat, which heals itself when it hits you. You have a Hellhound with Attack Break, which can be surprisingly annoying when you're trying to kill it. The Dark Elf has Attack Break and Decay. Cyclops has Roar, and the Lava Titan just guards. So in my opinion, the most dangerous of these adds are the Hellhound and the Vampire Bat, simply because of their threat range, especially the Hellhound because it does have Strike. If your tank is stunned when these things spawn, then you're going to have a lot of trouble getting your healers to a position where they're going to be safe. So I would highly recommend that if you don't think you can get your healers to a safe position, you need to kill the Hellhound and the Vampire Bat so they don't cause all kinds of trouble for you. The Dark Elf is actually the least annoying because she will cast Decay when she can, and that actually just saves you an entire turn of having to deal with her because Decay really doesn't hurt you that much. The Cyclops, I would recommend that you engage it over it engaging you because Roar is just always very annoying. It will strip your buffs, and if it strips the wrong buffs, then it can ruin a run. Depending on what kind of strategy you're going to play. And the Lava Titan is not a threat at all. It's just kind of annoying sometimes. Sometimes it's a little bit annoying when it's guarding things, but it actually can be useful if you're using Cherie. Cherie can take the Lava Titan to her advantage, kill the Lava Titan, and get an extra turn. So going back to the stun mechanic again, you can see that I am just leaving Ledin in range and just not caring if he gets stunned for multiple turns. So this is why I say that Ledin's job here can be taken by pretty much any tank, as long as they can survive a couple hits in succession. Obviously, if you have TRs, this is a complete non-issue. TRs will just heal him up every single hit. Although Ledin is very good at counter damage, and the Crystal Titans of course also reflect. The only other tanks that have Crystal Titans are Grineer and Betty, and both of them do not have a magic guard, so that will make this fight a little bit more complicated if you decide to use them. So your tank should never ever be placed on the right side of Carla, because of the way the AI works, they will always, if they do not have some other thing to determine who they're targeting, so such as class priority, or the fact that Carla targets melee units over ranged units, or that she prioritizes attacking low HP units to try to kill them. So if there is nothing else like that to determine, okay, I should attack someone else, she will always attack the unit to her right first. So this is why you should not place your tank to the right of Carla, because if you do that, you're basically leaving your tank to be perma-stunned for the entire fight. Now, obviously, this is not the case if you have a tank that's a Lancer or something. If you have a Lancer tank, then Carla will transform into a Lancer class, after which she will probably priority target a Cavalry class, but I think that just makes this fight more complicated than it needs to be. Anyway, Carla will target the unit on her right first, and then she'll attack the target below her, and then up, and then left. So you can try to use this to your advantage to try to control who you want Carla to hit. You do not want to be stunned all the time in this fight, and you want to control how you get your stacks very carefully. This is why you can see right now I'm moving my units out to the right side so that they won't get hit by an AoE if she decides to cast it. I kind of forgot to keep track of the AoE at this point. But anyway, when later on in the fight she's going to summon a floor hazard that will be very dangerous. It removes like 90% of your health, so if you're stunned, you'll just wait turn in the fire and you'll just die, because Carla will just see that you're at low HP and kill you. And because healing always takes place before the fire, so you can't put something like Iris's Talon on somebody and expect them to live through the fire plus Carla's attack. Just ignore that. There's no... What notification? This is a professional playthrough, okay? There is no notifications going on here. So now I'm just lining up my units to get ready to attack Carla. I'm gonna leave the last ad alone for now. Actually summoning the second wave of ads. The ads come on turn 5, 10, and 15. I think this is as good a time as any to note that the ad summoning is why you can't really follow this video one to one. You need to actually do the unthinkable and understand the mechanics of the fight. So here, the big thing is that because the positions of the monsters are randomized on set spawn points, the spawn points are always the same places, but the monsters that spawn on them will be randomized. So, like I said before, the ones you really want to take care of are the Hellhound and the Vampire Bat because of their long reach, and you want to try to engage the Cyclops before it engages you, and just kill it before it can roar anything. And that's why you can't follow this one-to-one, because obviously the positioning will be different based on where they spawn, and that will change how you deal with the turn from then onwards. So you can see right here that Carla decided to resummon her minions even though there was one left. I've read a couple people say that she only resummons if you kill all of them, or she only summons if you kill X number of them, but this doesn't seem to be true. I played this fight enough times to, it almost felt like it was random when she was resummoning these minions. Sometimes she would actually summon them while I was halfway through working on one, and that could actually potentially ruin a run if I wasted too many turns on killing a summon that I was not, if I wasted too many turns killing a summon and I didn't end up actually killing it, so that I got debuff from Carla. So, from all my testing, I would assume it is triggered by HP person. Also, by the way, you saw that I made a huge mistake here. I casted the faction buff while Narm was still decayed, so I guess the Dark Elf got the last laugh in the end. It won't ruin my run, obviously, because I'm showing it to you, but yeah, don't do that. You can also see I'm playing Keep Away from the Cyclops because, like I said, you don't want to deal with Roar, potentially taking away a very important buff, especially on Ledin, who requires his buff to be active, you know, in order to do enough counter damage and in order to guard people. Yeah, you would be able to ignore Roar a little bit more if I had more buffs on here, but this is there's a pretty low amount of buffs in this party setup, so you don't really want to deal with Roar. So you can see that I'm actually running Ledin out here, and that's because he took the hit last turn, so I don't need him to take another hit this turn. And also because he can do a really strong counter, as always. Ledin is the king of counters, as we all know. So any DPS that has Angel Soldiers is really good for taking a hit from Carla because of the magic damage she does. So Matthew and Cherie, of course, have Angels. Liana has Angels. Emmerich has Angels, and Angelina has Angels. So these are all very good options to take hits from Carla when your tank is otherwise incapacitated. You can also maybe try using Olivier with Angels, but you would need to have Extreme Magic Bow, and it would make his snipe skill less effective. I would not recommend trying it with Rachel because magic damage is really pathetic in this fight. My initial clear of this stage actually involved Chris in the party. My initial clear involved Matthew, Chris, Luna, Ledin, Tiaris, and Liana. And Chris pretty much just stood there and looked pretty the whole time. She really didn't do much. I mean, she damaged the ads a little bit, but Carla has such high magic defense, you should not bother bringing mages, in my opinion. So now I only have 2 units left, and both of them need to go in so Carla doesn't buff herself. And that's fine because Ledin has his debuff come off now and he can take a hit. He also runs in to use Burning Sun because there's no ads I'm working on right now, so it's very safe to attack her. Alright, so here comes the floor hazard, which is the fire on the floor. So getting on the enemy phase like I did here is actually the ideal situation, because this means that it will immediately trigger it to move one space out, like you see here. This is nice because, you know, it means I don't have to spend a turn having to dodge the fire, and none of my melee attackers can get close to her. But anyway, the way this fire works is that it will move out and then move back in. It will move up to 3 spaces away from her and then move all the way back in. So this is just another mechanic being added to make you consider your positioning. Positioning is everything in this fight. And you have to be very careful not to get stunned inside the fire, because like I said, if you get stunned inside the fire, it's pretty much an auto death. There's pretty much no way of getting back from it. And from here till the end of the fight, it's pretty much just a tank and spank. So she just casted Dark Reincarnation, which means pretty much everybody is going to get stunned if they get hit again. So the important thing here is that I need to remember not to place anybody 2 spaces away from her, so that they will not get stunned while inside the fire next turn. So here you can see that I'm hesitating to engage with the Dark Elf, even though I really want to get rid of it. But if I did that, I would be placing myself in the range of the skeleton on the top. These skeleton and ghost ads have 4 range on their skills, so if I attacked it, it probably means I would have to deal with a black hole hitting my entire party, and that could spell the end of the run, and I really didn't want to have to do that at this point. And you'll see soon that ignoring the Dark Elf is pretty much the end of Ledin, because there's just going to be way too many hits for him to tank on enemy phase. Obviously, again, if you had Tiaras, this is not an issue, because Tiaras is probably the most important PvE character in the game. She just makes almost any tank invincible. Luckily, Divine Guard does not get dispelled here, so he still gets a big beefy counter on that Cyclops. Also hits the Lava Titan pretty hard, enough to kill it. And here comes Carla to finish Ledin off, but not before he gives one last good counter to her. So here I'm about to send an arm to her death. Again, I was trying to avoid the skeleton because if I melee attacked the Dark Elf, I would have been in range of the skeleton. So I thought my Narm could have survived this attack, which is a big mistake on my part. If my Narm had Last Rites equipped, obviously this wouldn't be an issue, but I don't have enough Last Rites to go around to give to everybody. So that's just a limitation I have, and I'm assuming that's a limitation that many people have. So you'll see that because I realized that at this point, because I've lost 2 units, that I'm kind of in a hurry. So I need to hurry it up. So I start attacking Carla, even though I'm actually standing in the fire. So standing in the fire to attack isn't a big deal as long as you don't get stunned, because that allows you to heal up afterwards. Because it's ending your turn on the fire that actually does damage to you. And the reason why stun is a lot more painful is because stunned units always move last in your turn, so you're not allowed to heal them back up. So you see again that I'm prioritizing healing Cherie here because like I said, Carla prioritized attacking whoever's to the right of her first. And so at this point, because I only have the only 2 characters I have to tank Carla left are my 2 DPS, Matthew and Cherie, which actually isn't a big deal because they both have angels. But the important thing is that I alternate them both out of the right side of Carla, so neither one gets hit twice in a row. And I get a Gale here, but it's not going to be important because you're going to be seeing that this is still only turn 18, and this is actually going to be the final turn of this fight. So I did have a little bit of a safety net here. So if your enchants aren't as good as mine attack-wise, or you don't have King's Crowns like I did, because you'll notice that I used King's Crown quite a bit during this fight, you know, there's a whole other 2 extra turns to do damage on Carla if you get the same kind of strategy going as I do here. So I know that was pretty sloppy, but, you know, I hope that strategy was helpful for anyone who is still struggling with the fight. Again, I know I'm kind of late on this fight, but that's the Grey Witch Cometh completing 18 turns. I'll see you guys next time.